Good morning, everyone. So, got a special request. Wallace Farm and Sawmill. I talk with Tyler back and forth on Facebook, and he's was telling me he's getting ready to redo one of his mills, and was curious about my sawdust. Maybe building his sawdust setup like how I got mine. Pretty simple setup. And I was just going to send him a video this morning and an email, and I was like, well, why not just share it with everybody? So I figured I'd come down here and do a little bit better video. So anyways, let me back it up. Alright, so the drive shaft here runs the blade, turns that way. Well, all it is he has this is a collar for a flat belt to run on. And what it does is the flat belt just goes down to a rear end, which the yoke would face this way, but they took that off and put a flat pulley on there. That side there still has, well, you can see it, the lug studs on it. But on this side, they put a manure spreader gear. They drilled holes in a gear to match the studs on this side. This is a posi rear end. They both spin the same way. But yeah, this is a doodlebug rear end. That's why it's so skinny. So I'm sure you could use any rear end. You would just have to cut it, and hell, the axle shafts, if you wanted to be real sloppy, I'm sure you could just get it to the distance you needed and just cut it off and weld your gear to it if you needed to. I know it wouldn't be the cleanest setup. Down on this side now. So the rear end just hangs from the husk. It's got this support here and then those two there. But when I cemented this, I ran some poles straight down and bolted it all just to make it a little more less shake. And then Jason's grandpa had these here. These are just to pull on it a little bit to help. It was threaded rod, and it was just to help keep from it bouncing around. Like, because if that chain would snag up on a big chunk or anything, it would make it jerk a little bit. And I noticed it would make my blade send a little bit of vibration through my blade. Seems to be a lot better now since I did that. But so all you need is the flat belt to be able to go onto your mandrel. That will power the rear end. So that would go to that other pulley, which as that turns makes that go this way and drags the sawdust out. And I'm sure you could move that over some if you needed. There's quite a space in here. You could have probably used, well, no, not really. I was gonna say you could probably use a longer rear end, but that's about where the sawdust comes down at. Perfect. Okay, so then you got your manure spreader gear mounted to the rear end, your manure spreader chain, which the original chain here had these old beat down wood ones, and I started replacing them with aluminum, just riveted on, Harbor Freight riveter, the air one. But then, and I have probably another 40 foot of chain. See, the original was set up at Jason's grandpa's place was probably damn near out to that white oak back there. So it was double this length. Okay, they gotta do something about sawdust. I've been really slack. Yeah, see, the wood ones have been falling off on me. But this is just mounted on two old school Babbitt bearings. Shaft running through another manure spreader gear, which is lined up with the mill. Yeah, simple setup. Here, I'll fire it up real fast and do a walk around while it's going. Yeah, thought I had everything picked up last night. Knew we were going to be getting some storms rolling through, and we got a good one this morning come through, and I left them Sawbits. Brand new box. Hopefully they're not wet inside, but brand new box of Sawbits sitting on that drive shaft cover. It was right there. It's only half of it was getting wet, but of course they were sitting on the half that was getting wet. Yeah, but this setup here, if you had that more enclosed across the top, you would get half of that sawdust down there. You know, it's a little bit of sheet metal or even some aluminum to angle that. I eventually was going to do that, but I always say I'm going to do something and never get to it till years later. Alright, I should be warm enough. I fired that thing up and I forgot to put the soup cans on the muffler, and that one over there blew out so much water. Alright, well. And I just slid away there. After a few cuts, you build up a mound on this back side, and it just takes it out pretty good. Yeah, there was a lot more guards in there for the sawdust, and I was slack about it, but yeah, that's duct tape to tighten up that belt. I put a little on that arbor and it worked out great. Hey, I gotta do some of this sawdust, because if you let it get too high like this right here, it loosens the chain up, and then you get one little piece of bark comes up here and it'll derail you. I've been working on the building a little bit. Got all my poles in. I just got to finish doing all the latchings, and I'm welding those little brackets like I did on those there. So she's tornado proof. We've been getting tornadoes around here nowadays. So that new wheel I put on here a couple, probably what, a month ago, maybe a little longer, probably wasn't the best candidate. It really took a lot of the treads off. I'm gonna have to break down and get that nice wheel I got for it on there. My only issue was he told me he had to really heat and beat this homemade coupler on there. So that's been my most because if I get that off, I just got to get this bearing off, and then I don't even have to take all of that off. I undo those 6 bolts and you slide that wood puck right off. And then I would slide this I pulled the little building out of there the other day. Trying to get through some of this pine. I've had this other tree service dropping off pine logs lately. And I told them nothing under 6 foot, so they brought me quite a few 6-footers. And 8-footers, a few 10-footers. They just brought me some just maple and some, looks like Chinese elm. Yeah, this is all fence logs, and I've done quite a few already. I wanted to get to that pile of oak back there before it's firewood. But yeah, they brought me a little mixture of everything. Hell, I'm still working on all those logs I went and picked up from Dale's. Here's some of those right here. Been doing pretty good about the beetles getting into them. I'm still trucking along. I'm trying to make fence and raise 4 kids that are home from summer vacation. So, yeah, I don't mind that. When I moved this thing, I damn near tipped it, and half of that shit fell off my little bench. But one of the American mills I bought had this as their drive wheel. It's in real good shape. They drilled the holes perfect. When it was on the other mandrel, it spun perfect. So they did a good job on their hole placement. Bunnies everywhere. I went out and picked up the garbage can yesterday, and there was a couple babies in the grass right next to the road there. I gave them I jumped them and got them to run up into the woods a little further, but I don't need no rabbits getting smushed in front of the house and my kids seeing it. Oh, yeah. All right, and then one other update, the conveyor. So that motor only spins one direction. My buddy Chris had gave me that controller with it. But when he had dropped the motor off to get it looked at, I don't know if he forgot or what, but I thought we were going to have them hook that controller up to it, but he's going to drop it off. I'm going to see if that'll make the motor spin the other direction. I'm thinking not, because I believe this is a gear induction motor for this, but yeah, so that's only the stall out on that, because this video is probably getting long, but if you want to know what's going on, you got to just sit and listen. So the way I had that motor mounted before will make this spin that way. Okay, well, all this is too fat to fit in the husk. So I want to put this end, if I move that little wood that's always bouncing around there where the boards fall, this should damn near fit in there perfect, this end here. So, and then I figured I'd weld some support braces to beef it up. And then I also have a couple of round rollers that I was going to put a sprocket on and have right there, taking some of the smack from the wood as it slaps down, so it doesn't beat the shit out of that too bad. If my measurements are all correct, I should be able to, I have these, not for that edger, but for that other edger, the Port Huron one, I have these bigger rollers. A couple of them are solid. So I thought about using one of those right there, just next to a couple inches from the mandrel, and then that the rest of the way off, just to take some of that smack when the big chunks fall over. All right, everyone, this one's getting long. Hopefully this helps you out, Tyler. It's a pretty good setup as long as you got it set up good and you use all your guards. I just should have, could have, haven't. Alright everyone, thanks for watching. Hope this helps some of you guys, and till next time.